Once gave a talk in Baltimore at the Basilica, I think it was, and it was on pornography, and a quote-unquote sex worker was there. I would never say that that's work, but someone was there and they raised their hand, and they God bless her and save her, she was a pornography performer, a prostitute, these sorts of things. And she got up to tell me, to kind of challenge me. And I was super okay with that. And she said, you're painting people in the porn industry as helpless victims, but you have to understand, like, I'm very happy doing this. And my response was, you're wrong to be. Like, you're wrong to be happy. Which is something that just sounds so... It just rings bad against our ears in this modern age, but it's like... I mean, but I think we've all had that experience, right? Or especially women. Women seem to resonate with this more when I've shared it than men. But, you know, a woman might say, I know a friend, and she's with this guy, and he's bad for her. She's not herself when she's around him. Her personality isn't in full bloom, kind of thing. But when I approach her, she'll say, but I love him. I'm happy. Yeah. And in that context, you can see why it might be right. Like, well, you're wrong to be.
Yeah, I suppose the question there is, what is true happiness? And at least for the Catholic theological and philosophical tradition, true happiness is the authentic and full flourishing of what it means to be human. And of course, we can get happiness in fragmentary ways and in things that aren't actually helpful for us, like the fourth donut I really could have left aside. It's not temperate to go for the fourth donut. But right now, for the next 5 minutes...
Unless you're trying to gain weight, which Thursday is trying to do. He brought in a box of donuts this morning and said, want one? I said, get behind me, Nick.
For you
called me Satan.
Old Nick there. For you, Nick, that fourth donut is perhaps good, but for me, in my own context, it would no longer be good.
Just to be clear, Thursday did not eat 4 donuts.
Yeah, I didn't eat 4 donuts. And
in doing that, I both vindicated you and have brought this back to Thursday before you accidentally become Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what is happiness? It's not a fleeting emotion. Right. It's not
subjective contentment.
State. No, it's the full flourishing of what it means to be human.
Right.
And for Aristotle, that was to live in accord with right reason. And one could think of this as a kind of clinical description, but reason shows us reality. Reality becomes manifest for reason, and included in reality is the good. So the good becomes manifest for reason. So do I want what is truly good? Then I'll search it out and I'll try and live in accord with it. If I don't, I'm doing something by definition unreasonable. That's not truly good. But this part of me wants it. I'll satisfy that part for a short period of time, but in the end will degrade in my happiness in general. And so it really is sensible to act in accord with right reason. The whole life of virtue is to live in accord with right reason. And it's basically simply the same as saying to attain what is truly good, because reason will show that for us.
So the theologian calls sin what the moral philosopher might call unreasonableness. So the two mean the same thing.
Yeah.
And you think like Aquinas is like kind of like he would gel with this idea when he says that whenever we act for at least a perceived good. It may or may not be, but this idea, and I'd love you to put some flesh on this, that you have never done anything intentionally in your life that didn't in some way seem good.
Yeah.
He says, I think that even the person who commits suicide perceives the good of not suffering.
Yeah.
So something objectively evil is taking place, but it wasn't chosen for the objective evil.
Yeah.
And you say, well, okay, but what if somebody does something to kind of give the middle finger to God?
Yeah.
Okay, but like even that is perceived as a good, perhaps to establish one's autonomy or freedom.
Yeah.
Like even that, I'm perceiving something as good, but I'm wrong. What do you think?
For Aquinas, the object of the will is the good, and reason presents to the will the good, and thereby specifies what we can choose. So it doesn't make sense for Aquinas that the will would make any movement if there is not a good before it. And then the question becomes ethical. Well, is this a real good or an apparent good? Is it true, or is it merely apparent and in fact false? And we can be incredibly mistaken about that, or we can also see this is a merely apparent good. it's actually false, but right now I'm going to take an exception because I really want it. But for Aquinas, the will's movement is toward the good, period. It's like the eye sees color, the will wants the good. But is it a false good? That's the question.
It reminds you of Chesterton's line, don't be so open-minded that your brains fall out. Like the mind is made for truth.
Yeah. And I think it's a really compelling view, because then when we speak to our contemporaries who don't adhere to the faith or perhaps think philosophically about matters, you can appeal to their experience. Like your aunt who, like this guy who made her happy was really bad for her. You can say, well, I see you're seeking some good here. I see you're seeking some fragment of happiness.
Yes.
Now, what I want for you is a more full picture of happiness. And because this is impeding you, you're actually closed off to this fuller picture.
And
so,
again, I sorry to cut you off, but again, I think of the child, right, who only wants to eat ice cream. Like we could say to our slightly older children, what about the kid who only wants ice cream, who thinks this will make them happy? Can you understand why they would think that? Of course. Will it? No. How would the child respond to the parent who said to them, you may not only eat ice cream? They would be angry. Why would they be angry? Because it would appear that they're taking away something that's good. Okay, so when we look at God's commandments towards us in the realm of sexuality or any other realm, could it be the case that God loves us and sin hurts us? As Ralph Martin says, sin always hurts, sin never helps. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe or you're a dingus. What's a dingus exactly?
Used to refer to something one cannot or does not wish to name specifically.
You don't have to subscribe, but if you did, I'd love it. You dingus.
Like the video. That's who we're using that one. Take one.